Okay, good morning, Ajay.
Hello, Mana. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining on our Gathering Genie episode. It's been a while since I've recorded one. And I usually record this based on the inspiration of what's going on in my life. And our last exchange that happened triggered from a very interesting article you sent about something in history that happened, which how people got together to figure out what to do in a state of crisis. And just that holding of that space for dialogue can make or break and in case be a reason for death or life. So I think I really enjoyed that conversation that happened on email, and here we are. And basically, yeah, in this little capsule, we just want to hear your thoughts about what you're noticing in gatherings that either you're part of or that you're hosting. What do you see are some of the missing ingredients, and maybe examples of a few where you've tried something different and what has been sort of the result. And so that's our conversation today. So I'll just start by, yeah, what are you noticing in gatherings that you're normally attending, either in-house or outside? What are some things that strike you?
So, the first thing I want to say is that I started out as a robotic person, alien from Alpha Centauri, and it took me a very long time to understand the importance and the role that gatherings play. Okay, so I feel that I started out perhaps experiencing shallow social gatherings, which are, not a very interesting or useful aspect of life. And
Mm,
so I was pretty dismissive. And it has taken me many years to
mm,
understand the importance and the role that gatherings play in our lives. And I would encourage every other robot who's listening to this to explore opening your heart and thinking about these things more. Okay, from one robot to another, please think about this. Okay. The second thing I want to say is that my views on how we think and how we understand the world, how we form models of the world have changed. I used to think that there is a role of reasoning and we get knowledge and then we change our minds.
mm,
Okay. I feel actually the world is far more a human process, a messy human process of us talking to one another.
mm,
And it'll never be a decisive moment that you persuade me,
mhm,
but slowly we revise our views, slowly we revise our beliefs. Okay. And we need to be placed in an environment of trust. If we feel threatened, then we will never revise our beliefs.
mm,
So if we want to create learning communities where all of us, are able to grapple with problems and bring improvements to our knowledge, then it is really important that it has to be done face to face. It really only happens
mm,
face to face. We only change our mind out of face to face encounters. And
mm,
we do it slowly. We will revise our views 5% at a time, 10% at a time. Also, I have watched myself that I don't revise my views immediately when I'm in front of you. Okay.
mm,
You show me things that go against my worldview.
mm,
At first, I am cold and I try to act tough and I try to act like, oh, but I'm so cool. I'd already figured out everything.
mm.
In an environment of trust, I'm listening.
Right.
And only with a lag, it all
Mm,
percolates and it adds up into the mind. So the process of engagement reshapes the mind and it
mm,
happens with a lag. It doesn't happen instantly.
right.
Okay, so these are the glorious and positive things that I feel we should look for and we should try for.
Mm, mm,
Okay. The second thing that I have understood is that diversity is central.
mm,
Okay, if we are doing a group think with each other, then we don't gain a whole lot.
mm,
Now, diversity can come in two ways. One is the standard measures, which is that you want age heterogeneity, you want people from different walks of life, okay, to mind meld and to come together. But equally, again, I want to go back to the word room of trust.
mm.
Actually, we are all a little bit crazy in various ways. We have chinks in our head that are all strange.
Mm,
And I think a good gathering is one where people feel safe and feel comfortable to go into the nether corners of their mind
mm,
and speak more freely and more clearly about the strange stuff that's
mm.
going on in our heads.
Yeah.
So when there is more fear in the room, when there is more awkwardness and a formality in the room,
Mm,
then we are likely to stick to the party line. We're going to stick to our talking points. we will basically reiterate our press releases. And
Hmm.
then what's the point? Because you can read my press releases from a distance. Why
Right.
would you bother meeting me? Okay. So this just reiterates the importance of creating trust and creating emotional comfort in the room, and only then people really engage. So I get the diversity idea. So I truly value age heterogeneity in the room. Okay, I often observe that my youngest friend is age 22 and my oldest friend is age 82, and I take and give things all across the spectrum of age, and I think that's a good thing. So of course we should do that. And field diversity, the X in XKDR forum stands for interdisciplinary.
Hmm.
So yeah, we should bring diverse people together. But equally, actually, we each of us is more rich and interesting than we make out.
Right. Hmm.
So the proper we put in front of the world is always a censored one, where we make ourselves look more normal and more conventional,
Hmm.
and we don't actually go out on a limb.
Hmm.
And the role of safety and trust in gatherings is to create conditions where people will open up more and uh, speak at the edges of their knowledge and their beliefs
Yeah.
and their experiences rather than the simple mainstream stuff.
Hmm.
Um, then the next thing that I think I have understood is that I've often been in gatherings where there is like a bit of a contrived effort at you try to create separate tables and give them some project and give them some work assignment, and
Hmm.
we try to create engagement, and in my experience that hasn't worked for me or my kind of people.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
the attempt at trying to create a bright, cheery set of activities, which will be a little more participatory, I feel is shallow and it doesn't get you very far, or at least, I'm sure different people are different and different
Hmm.
gatherings have different objectives, but I have not particularly experienced them. So, for example, consider conferences. What I feel works in a conference is first that, you need a very simple old style seminar where there is a talk,
Hmm.
but in that talk, what I want to always hammer at on people is don't give me your press release. Give me
Yeah.
something novel, say something new. So
Yeah.
I'm always asking people to do something new that
Yeah.
is not widely known or that you have not talked before, and I
Right.
can't get it from your website. And 99% of people actually don't have too many new things to say
Hmm.
or interesting things to say. And our challenge is to find speakers who will push the boundaries, who will push the frontiers, say something new. So we organize the Emerging Markets Conference. It's a good economics conference, takes place in December every year, and that's the single test that we want people to say something new.
Hmm.
And we don't want press releases, we don't want government propaganda, we
Hmm.
don't want institutional positions.
Hmm.
Like, you work for the Bank of England, you will give me an official view of the Bank of England, not interested.
Hmm.
We only want people who have something fresh
Yeah.
and novel to say, and then it lights up the room. And then it's often interesting to put a discussant. We struggle for a discussant that will think deeply about the world and respond to things substantively. So, in the academic context, there is a very boring thing which is called an academic referee report, which is like very often has degenerated into nitpicking. And
Hmm.
I never want a referee report to
Hmm.
be the discussant in a talk. I
Hmm.
want it to be big ideas that,
Hmm.
do you share this sense that this is an important question? Do
Right.
you fundamentally agree with what the person has done? If they are wrong, tell us why you think they are wrong. If they are right, how does this change your views about the world? What is the importance of this work? What is the significance of this work? This
Hmm.
is what we ask of a discussant. We never ever want a normal, boring academic journal referee report, which is just basically a waste of life. It is that academic dance. Please
Hmm.
go do it in your journal's game, but don't bring it
Hmm.
into the. We want big ideas. We want big thinkers, so
Hmm.
that the discussant is also fresh and challenging and not
Hmm.
just dull and dreary. And then the third principle I feel we should be doing in gatherings is give ample, unstructured time.
Yeah.
Don't try to be a manager of time.
Hmm.
Give a lot of time. So, really, what we're doing is we're bringing people together. So, our rule one in organizing gatherings is bring amazing people together.
Yeah.
Like, don't bring normal people together. So, I always prioritize the knowledge, the curiosity, the hunger, not the positions, not the power. If
Right.
you will invite 20 powerful people, then basically it's a guarantee of a mediocre
Yeah.
meeting or a mediocre conference. Bring interesting people together,
Mm,
hungry, curious people who are pushing at the edges of knowledge,
mm,
who are not there by virtue of position, but who are there by virtue of their curiosity and their energy and their imagination and their knowledge, and people who have something new to say. And then part two, don't manage too much of their time. Have
mm,
some modest amount of material per day, and then give ample time for people to be with each other, for them to choose. So, for example, I have attended some of these so-called unconferences
yeah.
where people will self-organize and choose their own material, and I'm not too impressed. I mean, it just turns into one small room after another, doing some quiet conversation. Then I just much rather have lunches and lounges
Mm,
where people will self-organize around tables and talk about whatever they want. So I have been in a couple of unconferences and I'm not too impressed at that. So I think the right blend is some amount of central planning,
mm,
of choosing interesting people, interesting subjects where you will get provocative ideas, and then ample free time. And so that's where offsites really work well, because you
mm,
get more free time. Like, it is
right,
not very useful to do this in a big city where people will come attend one or two sessions
right.
and then
Yeah.
leave. Whereas if we go offsite, then the amount of unstructured time that people get together works much better. I'm a
Mhm.
great believer in doing things like a hike or a
Mm,
river cruise, because you bring people together in a
mm,
deeper way, and then the quality of the
that's it.
conversations
Yeah.
goes up. So this, in brief, is my thoughts on this. Is this interesting to you? What do you think? What would you suggest we should be thinking differently?
I'd like to just unpack a bit more of what you have said. So, for example, when you said, building trust is so key, right? The environment of trust, so that really that messy human process can unlock and people can come forward with things they've never said aloud earlier in a group. So, what helps build that trust? So, if you're a host of a meeting and you're bringing people together, what do you do to make people feel?
So once again, the biggest problem is power. So when there is power in the room, then everybody freezes up, or we are like iron filings, and we respond to a magnet. And then everybody is looking to power, is looking to suck up to power, is
Mm,
looking to engage in political speech,
yeah.
where I want this favor from Mr. Power.
Mm,
So the first thing to think about is to get power out of the picture, or certainly even if there are powerful people, then we need the kind of person that will not carry that swagger
mm,
and will not behave in ways that reflect their normal day job of being a powerful person.
mm, mm, mm,
And then we need a couple of key people in the room who will be the starter culture, the sardo culture, who
mm,
will get the conversation going
uh,
in a fresh and honest way.
mm,
Because at first everybody is awkward, and then we are all sort of looking at each other and being very stuffy and uh, engaging in cautious conversations.
mm, mm,
I personally think that the bane of life is the small talk. People talk about people, people talk about cricket and Bollywood and politics, and all that is just a waste of life. And how quickly can you get past that
mm,
to actually talking about interesting things? So again, you need some deeply committed people who will initially shoulder that burden of bringing the conversation into more substantive thinking territory.
mm, mm.
The old adage, little minds talk about people, medium minds talk about events, great minds talk about ideas. Now, that's not just
Um,
about great minds, it's about how we do gatherings so that you actually
yeah,
get to ideas.
correct.
So,
Yeah.
we need people in the room who will
Mm,
nudge that along and sort of get people as quickly as possible out
mm,
of conversations about Netflix and cricket, and like come to more interesting material.
mm.
So if people are going to go on a hike and talk about cricket, then it's like, why bother?
Mm. Yeah. And then how do you make people listen? Because you said if the environment happens in a way that people listen, and that listening is what's churning something, but how do you get people to listen?
So to some extent, in a formal conference structure, when we centrally plan the structure, we inevitably create the
Mm,
gap between a speaker, a discussant, and others in the room. So in that sense, that's
mm,
happening for free. Now
mm,
the danger is people tune out and start playing with their phones. And
mm,
so this is where I focus on both the novelty of the ideas that,
Right.
you don't want people speaking their press releases.
Hmm.
So if you've got some powerful person who will basically express an institutional view, then it's a waste of life. Nobody wants to know the institutional view. They know it already.
Hmm.
Then you wasted 20 minutes of a talk. So
Hmm.
why bother? So you want people who will say something new and
Hmm.
have a novel idea and a novel argument that has not been said before. The second is to keep it at the level of big ideas, because it is all too often for people to drift into minutiae.
Hmm.
So we need to find the thinkers who are able to talk about ideas, and that's not easy. So there is a central planning role to conferences, and it's not easy to make that happen, but that's
Hmm.
what we've got to try. So
Hmm.
the again, this mixture of central planning and unstructured time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
a person will do a talk for 20 minutes, and if the talk is compelling enough that people actually bothered to listen and they did not play with their phones,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
then
Hmm.
it's actually a natural jumping off point that afterwards, when you're with lunch or when you're sailing on the river,
Hmm.
then you'll talk about those things. So it's a natural draw to talk about knowledge and to talk about the ideas as
Hmm.
opposed to doing small talk.
Correct. Yeah. 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 And you mentioned that when the talk is very novel and new, the room lights up, right?
Yes.
So what are those signs that you see in the room that, oh, this room is lighting up
So test one is people should not be playing with their phones.
now?
Okay, they should be listening to the speaker. You watch for their head movements, their eyes. Are their eyes glazed out? Are they bored to death? Are they like watching and taking interest? And then, of course, given the amount of time, do they put their hand up and talk and
Hmm.
disagree? And again,
Hmm.
I have in my field, I have a nose for institutional positions. So if a person is selling the interests of their org, then I basically just tune out. It's not interesting. I
Yeah.
want the person. I want a human mind. I
Hmm.
don't want people to represent their organizations. Right?
Hmm.
That's a waste of life. Everybody knows what your organization is doing. Everybody knows what your organization wants. We don't want you to eat airtime for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Yeah. And in one of the exchange we were doing on email, you mentioned some things where on some of the topics you ask for a vote once in a while. Again, just
So
to gauge interest. And so what are some of those ways you found to gauge interest or gauge response that have you found?
that's in more work settings. It's not in a conference setting, but yeah, meaning meetings in work are a central part of our life.
Hmm.
And I feel we, all of us, need to bring more intentionality on how those meetings operate and how to make them better.
Right.
So, there, the puzzle that I have addressed myself to is how do you harness the energy and the interest and the involvement of everybody in the room?
Hmm.
Because otherwise, three-quarters of the people who come to a meeting are actually just bored and not interested. And when people routinely say that meetings are a waste of time, I get shocked. There's something going wrong with the world if you're saying meetings are a waste of
Yeah.
time.
Hmm.
People are so convinced, people are so derisive. By the way, I do not think meetings are a waste of time. I think many meetings are badly organized.
Hmm.
So I feel that it's a comment on the organization if
Hmm.
meetings are a waste of time. So it's become a very strident part of modern tech bro culture to be dismissive about meetings. I don't agree. I think
Hmm.
that it's your fault if you're not organizing good meetings, because nobody is brilliant enough to do their work alone. Like
Hmm.
really, it's a computer coder's worldview that I want to sit at my screen and write my code. Actually, most knowledge, most invention, most teamwork happens through meetings. And so
Hmm.
rather than dissing on meetings, and it's become a fashionable pose
Hmm.
to be contemptuous about meetings. It is almost a misanthropic instinct that I'm contemptuous about others and my coworkers,
Hmm.
and so I don't like meetings.
Hmm.
Rather, I would flip it around and say, how do we make meetings work better?
Exactly.
And one element that I've done in the past,
Hmm.
uh, when I was a little more involved in the world of public policy, was that there are many design decisions to be made in the policy process. And uh, when I'm chairman of a room, sometimes I'm pretty sure I know what's going on, and I'm hearing people in the room, but I really feel I know this,
Hmm.
and I'm able to steer the room, and I'm able to
Hmm.
choose an answer, and then I do normal chairmaning. I throw my weight around and I get to that answer.
Hmm.
But many times I actually don't know the answer. Okay, and so first we need to be self-aware and understand what we don't know.
Hmm.
And when I'm not confident about my answer, what I would do is I would call a vote.
Hmm.
I would give everybody present in the room a vote.
Hmm.
And in steady state, that's a great repeated game
Hmm.
because then people realize that their life matters.
Hmm. Hmm.
Suddenly, everybody's level of knowledge, energy, involvement, meeting prep goes up
Right.
because they know that there is a possibility that I will call a vote. And when I
Right.
call a vote,
Hmm.
everybody gets equal power
Hmm.
and their knowledge, their views matter. And so then they better have an idea and an argument and be able to
Hmm.
speak up for something. So,
Hmm.
as opposed to the dull, listless approach that, I'm just in a meeting, I'm wasting my time. In any case, I have no say, and who cares about what I think, which
Right.
is the default mode in which people come into meetings.
Hmm. 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 Yeah. And so it's very interesting. What you're saying is here, it's the behavior, right? How are we? One is how is the host in himself looking at how they're organizing the meeting, why they're organizing the meeting, what they want to get out of the meeting, how do they want to engage. And it's also the behavior of the attendees, right? That how are we really incentivizing participation and engagement, right? So in this case, what would you say is for someone who's a regular host who's organizing meetings, what are things that they should be doing when they plan meetings? What is the basic hygiene that they must do if they want to if we want to have effective meeting? They want people to leave saying, oh, okay, that was I would go back to a meeting like that again.
Yeah, so it's good to have clarity on objectives. It's good to uh, have a clear collection of what are the materials that are going to be discussed.
Hmm.
I often like to bring everything together into a calendar entry. I paste I upload the relevant documents into the calendar entry.
Hmm.
And uh, at the end of a meeting, it's good to have clarity on what was the outcome, and it goes back
Hmm.
as a note to everybody in the meeting that this was the objective of the meeting. This is the outcome that we got. So I feel that's a very healthy meeting hygiene to have.
Hmm.
But in that, as I said, sharing power is very important.
Hmm.
So people will wake up if they feel that their presence in a meeting has consequences.
Hmm.
So, I mean, rule one, meetings should have consequences. If you're just meeting to chit chat, it's not that good. And the
Right.
second is that people should feel that their participation in the meeting has an impact upon the meeting outcome.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. Hmm.
with having a more democratic structure and sharing power is a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
Most of the modern world has this great man theory, and particularly men crave power, crave status, and try to amass power and like to flaunt power and show off their power.
Hmm.
And all that is a curse because it basically kills off everybody else's mind.
Yeah.
So the point of bringing others into a meeting is because you want to harness everybody's mind. And
Yeah.
to do that, the leaders in a meeting have to cede power.
Yeah. But one of the things I hear back from a lot of groups I work with is that we don't have the time. We have so many things to do, so many meetings to do. If we sit around asking people what they think in a group of 15, 20, we'll never get anything done. So is that a myth?
Yeah.
Meetings and time. Hmm.
So first, at a level of larger philosophy, I feel that a lot of Indian private sector firms, actually equally in the Indian state as well, government firms, Indian firms, have structural failures of management so
Hmm.
that they are primarily doing firefighting. Okay,
Hmm.
they're primarily doing execution.
Hmm.
The organization has not sufficiently resourced itself with the thinking and strategy end of it.
Hmm.
So the organization is just doing execution day and night.
Hmm.
And I feel that there is a very mediocre accent on getting things done, on doing execution,
Hmm.
that inevitably programs the organization in favor of mediocrity.
Hmm.
Because if you're only sitting and doing day and night, if you're only firefighting day and night, you're actually never going to make progress.
Hmm.
You're not going to improve. So that's part one, that the kind of resourcing required in the organization of people, of man months, of thinking, of understanding the external environment, of understanding the larger environment. That
Hmm.
requires effort, it requires resourcing, it requires a chunk of money to
Hmm.
be put in. Otherwise, it will not happen. So the first is that, yeah, if you think you're so busy that you don't want to have meetings, then it's probably a reflection on your management structure.
Hmm.
And management structure needs to be thought afresh in ways that everybody's not just day and night running around doing execution and doing firefighting.
Hmm.
Then, yeah,
Right.
then you need brief, quick bits of coordination,
Mm.
to do execution, and there's actually not much
Mm.
complex thinking and debate in the organization.
Right, right.
Organization that does not engage in complex thinking and strategy will not prosper, it will not flourish. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
mere execution does
Mm.
not add up to a strategy.
Mm.
uh, Great organizations think, great organizations have strategy,
Mm.
and getting shit done is not a strategy. Getting shit done is just execution, so that is part
Yeah,
one. And
yeah.
then you will find that in a healthy organization, there is the level of resourcing where there are people and man months who are devoted to actually thinking. So,
Mm.
a great organization has to develop a situational awareness of who am I, what is happening in the world, what is my place in the world, what
Mm.
are my threats, what are my challenges, what should I be doing differently. And then there is a time and energy to pursue those questions, and those questions will inevitably need to play out in a collaborative way through a meetings way,
Mm.
because the world is very complex and you can't do
Yeah.
these in one mind. Once again, this is the male yearning for a great man theory.
Mm.
The male idea is that there will be one great leader,
Mm.
and the great leader will know everything, and the great leader will tell us what to do, and we will all fall in line and we will obey.
Mm.
Okay, the world is too complex for a great leader.
Mm. Mm.
So effective organizations are one that that harness the minds of many people, and those arguments and those debates are
Mm.
what will craft a
Mm.
better understanding of the world and of our place in it, and our strategy for what we should be doing different.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And that's where the place of meetings arises. So if
Love
you
it.
don't have these basics, like if you don't have a strategic sense and you don't have the resourcing to do strategy,
Mm.
then like really you're an operations manager, and fine, please be
Right.
happy as an operations manager, and then expect that you will be mediocre and your organization will be mediocre.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And that's what happens sometimes in many meetings I attend. Actually, they're doing the work in the meetings. It's not the thinking about the work. It's actually the work getting done because it's not
So I
getting done
think
otherwise.
good terminology is strategy versus execution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you've already decided that we're going to make this kind of ball bearing with this kind of process in this kind of factory, then yeah, please go do it. And that, yeah, that is execution, and it is implementation, and it is important.
Mm.
And a lot of people in Indian private firms just revere execution. That's all they want to do. They
Mm.
don't want to think beyond that.
Right.
Thinking is hard, and
Mm.
people take pride in doing trivial stuff, and execution is easy.
Mm.
So we've just got a low performance equilibrium in India where we have mediocre firms who
Mm.
run day and night only doing execution, and they take pride in execution.
Mm. So as
No
an
great.
organizational, yeah, sorry, as an organization leader yourself, I mean, what are some of the practices you have tried to, have at XKDR, which address this thing about meeting culture, address this thing about thinking, so it's making the team think together. What is happening there?
The most important problem to solve is the problem of power.
Mm.
Uh, it is the way I hold myself and other leaders hold themselves, and the way they talk.
Mm.
So if we bring male aggression and male status seeking into the room, then we basically destroyed the room.
Right.
So we've got to be quiet and humble and encourage people to speak up, encourage women to speak up and accept mistakes, openly say, I was wrong. Okay,
Mm.
that's the path to opening up the room.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And you have regular processes in the rhythm of the organization to do this thinking, or it's more
Here in
the
XKDR,
balance between structure or spontaneity?
KDR Forum is a tiny, dinky, irrelevant organization sitting at the corner of the world. We're too small to set up too much formal process. I'm more like reporting
Yeah.
on my observation and experiences in much larger organizations.
Okay. Lovely. So is there anything coming up that you're excited to experiment with, try with in terms of gatherings?
So the apple of my eye is the Emerging Markets Conference, which happens in December every year in Bombay. It's uh, like in a way, it's an economics conference, but it is always yearning to be much more.
Hmm.
It is a sense of the world.
Yeah.
The world is a great drama, and it contains many fields. Okay, you have to understand politics, you have to understand international relations, you have to understand the world, and then we are able to grapple with the world. So it's a unique conference. I think it's a very good conference, and it brings people together, and it's a mind meld where people are able to share knowledge and perspective. And
Hmm.
we've been doing this for 16 years now, and I
Wow.
feel every year it has been refining its community and its internal processes.
Mm.
And people, so look, when you run a conference for 16 years, it develops a stable community.
Right.
So I've become comfortable coming to this and understanding what it represents.
Yeah.
And people open up and they are more comfortable talking and disagreeing with each other, which is the heart and soul of a good conference.
Yeah. And what tells you that it was a good conference?
Because I leave after the conference having changed my mind on many things. I'm the biggest customer of the conference.
Amazing. That's been great. Thank you, Ajay. Any other lingering thoughts that are staying with you at the moment about gatherings?
No, it's all your fault. You have encouraged me to. I stumbled into all this stuff organically. I never systematically thought about these things. Only now I'm
Yeah.
able to reflect on my experiences and have understood the importance and role of these things. So thank you.
Yeah. And what you brought about, I think again, you've reinforced the whole idea of behavior and self. And when we talk about facilitation, we talk about, the being and the doing, right? There are many things you can do, right? As you said, I can put up round tables, give people activities, but the sense of power is in my being the moment I walk in. None of that is going to matter. And so how much more it is important is in the what's in the mind of heart of the person who's walking in the room to hold that space. And if that is coming from a space of, genuine engagement, then the rest can follow and support that. So I think that's been great to hear.
Also, as I said, it runs deeper that if somebody has created an execution oriented organization, then no meeting can rescue them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
got to fundamentally try to build a thinking, learning organization
Yes.
that thinks about the world and its place in it and is able to engage in strategic thinking. If you
Exactly.
can't, then you've got a deeper problem at hand. It's a
Absolutely.
management problem.
Yeah. And what you've highlighted is that the way that meetings are happening are a symptom of something so much bigger. And then, it's an inquiry into a deeper cause. Thank you, Ajay. I think you've given lots
Bye
of
bye.
thought for everyone. And we hope to continue these conversations. And I hope to also maybe one day come to EMC and
Yes.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a
Bye
good
bye.
bye.